Welcome back to another episode of the Entry for One podcast. I'm your host, Jose Hernandez, and on this episode, we will be reviewing and discussing the Happytime Murders, directed by Brian Henson. On this episode, we're joined by an Aaron Cruz.
How y'all doing? Good to be back.
Yeah, with back to school, we kind of had to kind of postpone this episode a little bit, but we're back on track. Again, we're going to be talking about the Happytime Murders this week, and this movie is basically a dystopian film where we get to see the Muppets outside of their Sesame Street Sunday morning show. It being directed by Brian Henson, who has produced other Sesame Street related videos like The Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, and The Muppet Concert. I didn't really ever expect to see something like this.
No way.
It's not the first time we've seen an adult Muppet show or movie. For example, the Jeff Dunham show or the Team America World Police movie. But as far as Muppets go, I never thought we would see an adult-rated film kind of incorporating them into it. So the Happytime Murders is about a 90s TV cast that suddenly starts getting killed off as the show approaches syndication. Ex-cop Philip Phillips thinks that investigating this case might get him back into the LAPD. For the investigation, he finds himself teaming up with Melissa McCarthy's character in an effort to kind of crack down and find the killer. This movie stars Melissa McCarthy, Elizabeth Banks, Maya Rudolph, Joel McHale. You have Bill Beretta, who plays Phil Phillips. And then you also have Leslie Baker, who you might know from The Office. Other than that, I mean, what'd you think on this movie, Aaron?
Oh man. If you know, I could think back to my childhood and be like, oh, we've come a long way from those Muppets on Muppet Street and a little bit of acid. Yeah, I'd get this movie. I thought it felt kind of lazy in the writing. It wasn't really, I don't know, they could have done a lot better. I felt it relied on its genital humor and kind of, which was kind of, it was still funny, but I wish they had focused more on like the story. And I don't know, it just felt like it was missing something. Not what you'd expect out of a Henson, especially his first time coming into getting him back into the movie, kind of the roles again. Kind of wanted something to pop a little bit more.
Yeah, with this movie, kind of feels like everything that's funny in the movie you saw in the trailers.
Yeah, definitely.
Like as the movie progresses, a lot of the jokes kind of don't hit. Throughout the film, a lot of jokes they were just dry, and you would find that some things were funny, but for the most part, what you do see that is funny is something that had already been in the trailer, and that's what's kind of got you into watching this movie. The characters are okay. You primarily follow Phil Phillips and Melissa McCarthy in this movie, and although it being an investigative movie, I would have liked to see more of Phil Phillips' character doing the investigative work versus kind of McCarthy's character doing the entire investigation. Almost felt that way.
Hmm.
Again, I never really expected to see something like this made. As far as incorporating the other side of the Sesame Street. But yeah, I agree with you. It kind of felt lazy. This movie has a runtime of about an hour and a half, and it even feels longer than what it actually is. It feels very
Drags
stretched
on.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have seen this movie more as a TV show, maybe. I think it might have worked better. Just allowing you to get more familiar with like the characters that were in the movie, including Melissa McCarthy's character and the other puppets that are throughout the film. But other than that, I mean, it is forgettable for the most part. Um, how'd you feel about the twist? I mean, is that something you kind of saw coming?
Not actually, not right away. I thought she was dead. Well, I thought someone had been taken out of the picture, and then they kind of came back and slapped us in the face towards the end. But I didn't see that. I'll give it that. I didn't see the ending coming. I totally
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, no, exactly. That's one thing I think it did pretty well. Kind of leading you to believe it's someone and then quickly changing that. I
Hmm.
think it got that aspect of an investigative movie kind of pretty well. Other than that, I mean, it's a pretty plain and dry movie. It's very upfront. It tries to be very vulgar and make sure you know this is a rated R puppet movie. But a lot of themes just don't miss. There are some funny scenes that you don't see in the trailers that are kind of funny. But the movie's fine. It's a decent storyline, which again kind of gets you going and allows you to kind of some way put dots together and let you figure it out in some type of way.
Hmm.
Um, I could see though people figuring out right off the bat what's going on and who's kind of doing all these killings of puppets. But I thought it was a fine film. Again, it is kind of forgettable, but it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't really be in a rush to see this. I don't think I could recommend it. I don't know. If you're looking for a laugh and you can kind of laugh at anything that gets thrown at you, you might enjoy this movie, but it's okay. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it could have been better for me, man. I don't know if Henson was trying to reach out to more of a different demographic, trying to appeal to the Family Guyers and American Dad, trying to get them to come into the Muppet fold, trying to make them more adult. But I don't think they should be discouraged. I think they should try again. But yeah, it just didn't work. I don't know if it was McCarthy or what, but I had also done some research that they had made a switch from McCarthy, well, from Jamie Foxx to McCarthy. So originally it was supposed to be Jamie Foxx, and what I was going to ask you is like, would this have given it a different dynamic if it had a male lead in it, like Jamie Foxx? A little bit more. They're both well-to-do comedians, but I think McCarthy was a little bit too. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of her humor. She is funny, but I think her humor can be more abrasive, and it's not meant for a strong role. I think she's more of a supporting cast member. So I don't know. What would you think if maybe Jamie Foxx had been put in the lead role?
I mean, I do know her stand-up's pretty good.
Hmm.
As far as Jamie Foxx kind of having her role in this movie, I mean, Jamie Foxx has great energy, and I do think he could have brought a different feel to this movie.
Hmm.
Especially him partnering up with a puppet might have been a different outcome. I think. With Melissa McCarthy's character, I don't know. It just feels very very planned out and not smooth. Um, yeah, I think Jamie Foxx could have thrown a nice little twist to this storyline and kind of beefed it up with some more energy. I think it kind of missed that having that.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about it just didn't work for me.
This movie had opened the week after Crazy Rich Asians came out, and what's kind of crazy is Crazy Rich Asians still made more on the opening weekend for the Happytime Murders.
Crazy Rich Asians or Crazy Rich Indians? Which one did you say?
I said Asians, didn't I?
You said Indians at the second time.
Did I?
Yeah.
Crazy
Like
Rich Asians.
Asians, yeah.
This movie had a budget of 40 million.
Hmm.
It opened up with 9 million, and right now it's sitting at 18 million. So it might end up
Ouch.
losing at the box office.
Hmm.
Again, I would have liked to see this movie in a TV show. What do you think about that?
Like doing a TV show concept, kind of drawing it out like that, like detectives.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a limited series on Netflix, for example, I think could have really worked out. Just allowing it to have more space to have the investigation go and not feel so rushed.
It might actually kind of give you time to build the puppets as characters. I think it's hard for us to see. We're mostly relying on like the human factor, which was McCarthy, and I think that's who we couldn't really relate to. And I don't know, she just didn't do it for us. But yeah, a TV show would probably give them the pace they needed, really, to kind of make it work.
Yeah, that would have been kind of interesting to see. I don't know. It might be still open, um, an open idea maybe that has been thought of. But as far as a sequel to this movie, the way it's doing right now in the box office, I don't think it will end up getting that sequel. That I'm not
Hmm.
sure anyone is looking for. Maybe that one person, but the likeliness, I don't think it will end up happening. Um, it's interesting that Brian Henson wanted to do a story like this. He did direct it, and it's written by Todd Berger, who has kind of known for Parks and Rec. Or actually, he wrote Happy Time. He played Kip in Parks and Rec, so that's interesting.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But it's kind of funny, Brian Henson, like as his career was growing, he was producing and directing these Sesame Street movies, and he's always had this idea of wanting a rated R spin to it, which is kind of funny thinking about it.
Like I said, the idea was good. It just it needed better execution. That's all it was. I don't know. Just kind of revamp it and see if we can turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, with that decent enough budget, this movie feels very, B budget, C budget type of movie, which is very weird with the kind of actors they have in this movie.
Hmm.
They're not all A list, but I mean, with Melissa, Elizabeth Banks, Maya Rudolph, and then Joel McHale, and also Leslie Baker. I think it could have really been a much better movie than the way it came out. Yeah, I mean, the trailer definitely got me in. It was very raunchy, kind of vulgar, in your face type of deal, and then plus it was puppets. The Muppets were doing
Hmm.
all of this, and in this movie, I think it lacked a lot of puppets. Again, you're following primarily human characters in this movie, and I think it would have been much nicer to see the puppets have more screen time versus the humans in
Hmm.
this movie, and I think that's what kind of ended up kind of lacking in a way. Because other than that, I mean, nothing really else stands out other than the actual idea of having an R-rated puppet movie. But I mean, before we get into spoilers, is there anything else you wanted to kind of say about this movie as far as anyone thinking of watching this movie?
Yeah, wait till DVD comes out.
Yeah, this movie can definitely wait for a Redbox release or maybe even a streaming release.
Yeah,
Um, if you don't have Movie Pass, I'd probably recommend you wait for that DVD to come out.
exactly.
But with that being said, I think we'll get into spoilers now and start going with that. So, spoiler, if you don't want to kind of know who's behind the Happy Time Murders, you can either stick around or we'll see you on the next episode, which we'll be talking about the Nun next week. So,
The
if you want
Nun.
to check that out, that'll be next week. But other than that, we'll get into spoilers. Like I said, they did a very good job as far as hiding who was behind the killings of these puppets.
Hmm.
Um, before we say who was doing it, did you have a person that you thought was doing this or kind of behind the madness of this?
I I thought it was I thought it was gonna be like I knew it was gonna be one of the characters, but I thought it was gonna be those two cousins that had ended up hooking up and had the flipper grandkids out there in the barbecue middle of nowhere place. But
Hmm.
Yeah, no, the ending just totally took me by surprise because someone was supposed to be dead and they ended up being alive, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like
Yeah, what'd you think about that?
that was a good twist, man. I mean, I don't know, I don't, they didn't really go into how the body ended up there or anything else, and whatnot. But I mean, hey, we are watching Muppets, so I mean, I can't give them too much guff about it. But yeah, no, it was a surprise ending, man. Totally.
Yeah, the issue I had with the where Elizabeth Banks' character Jenny starts burning up in the vehicle that blows up.
Hmm.
Cause leading up to that, I'm like, okay, Jenny has to be behind this, right? And
Yeah.
then they blow her car up, and I'm like, wow, so who is it now,
Yeah.
And then for her to come back at the end was it didn't really work for me. I wish they would have at least left her killed off, and then just left Sandra's character be the brains behind everything. Again, I mean, the story is not too cut out well, but what doesn't make sense is that Philip Phillips' character, saw her die in the vehicle. You never see her get out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
She even says hi to him while she's in the car or something. And then for him not to ever find out that that wasn't actually a person in that car by the police department just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because the police department would have obviously showed up to investigate, and I'm sure he
Yeah.
would have heard, it was a dummy or a robot or in there or something.
Yeah. It's on our Muppet, maybe a Muppet body.
Yeah, Muppet body. That was in there. So for her to come out at the end kind of was, it was meh. I don't know why they would have done that, but
Big
in
plot hole.
yeah, they made. I guess they thought it was a nice little twist. But with Sanders' character being the brains behind everything, it kind of makes sense. Her being the killer, seeing her dad get killed, and then
Yeah, I know how we find out with the carpets don't match the drapes or something like that. That was terrible, man.
and I don't know why. I don't know how I didn't think about that, but it,
Yeah.
it made sense. Her
That
trying
was
to seduce
terrible.
the cop in the interrogation. The purple carpet matched the drapes. I mean, that being the biggest spoiler behind the movie, I thought it was fun. The idea of the puppets being outsiders was kind of cool in a way.
Mhm.
And then where Philip's brother was kind of trying to turn into a human with the nose job he had gotten, and
And the skin complexion too.
yeah, he had lightened himself to feel more like a
Jeez.
human. That
Yeah.
was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to take a look at how the Muppets would try to blend in with our surroundings, our community. But yeah, it's just cool. Like that stuff, like when they were beating up the Muppet on the side of the road, who was trying to make a dollar entertaining,
Yeah,
and he didn't really blame the kids. He just went about being a puppet. They have no spine, and then you look at the detective, and he's totally different. He's changed.
I want to say that scene with the homeless puppet, or I'm assuming he's homeless for money.
Mm, yeah.
That scene with those little kids was so bad. Like those kids they were so stiff, and that scene was just really bad, I think.
Oh
Um
yeah, but if you look at that, like, and look at scenes out of like Muppet Street, man, like it's hard. I bet you it's weird for kids to act with Muppets. I don't know, because I saw the way they acted, and it kind of reminded me of the old episodes of Muppet Street, because
like kind of
kids don't.
disbelief as far as what they're seeing or kind of having to interact with.
Yeah, exactly, the same stiffness. So that's why I was like, oh, okay, like this looks familiar. But yeah, I know what you're
Yeah, it was
referring
just
to.
awkward, but I could see them being unfamiliar, or being comfortable acting that way rather than a physical human. What was your favorite scene in this movie? Again, we saw a couple. The funnier ones we saw in the trailer, for example, like the one where she snorts the dust, which I thought was kind of funny. They're
And
addicted
she
to
gets all
sugar.
crazy. Yeah. I think it had to be a couple scenes for me. the the Muppet porn store,
Dude.
and that one it was just kind of funny. They made their own porn,
Yeah.
the Muppet porn store and by far probably the sex scene in The Office with the criminal mastermind that we didn't know at the time. But that one was hilarious. Oh my god.
Yeah, that first porn shop scene that we get where he's that's where he got sent by Sandra to investigate someone sending her believe it was like a threat letter for asking for money or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she sends him to that he it's weird cuz you could say she sent him to that porn shop, but he kind of sent himself there because he was familiar with one of those letters that was from a porn magazine.
Mhm.
And then, dude, that scene where the guy's milking the cow as a porn scene was, it was funny.
So weird, yeah.
And again, it was like, it makes sense just for like a puppet porn scene, which is the weirdest thing to talk about. But,
Yeah.
yeah, that scene was funny. And then, where he catches, in this same scene, he finds one of the old Happy Time members because the show was called Happy Time,
Yeah, it was the bunny character.
and the bunny character he's all scared, hiding away.
Yeah, he had his hat on and stuff.
And then the yeah, so that scene was funny. That's one of the funnier scenes that you don't really see in the trailer, other than the actual
Mhm.
murders happening,
Yeah.
um, done by a shotgun. But the second scene that you talked about was which is the office scene, which you could say is another porn scene. I think it would have been funnier if we didn't see that in the trailer. Obviously, that kind of got you. That's one of the scenes that kind of like made you know what this movie was kind of heading towards.
Yeah.
But I would have kind of liked to see it for the first time in the movie. I think it would have landed much funnier seeing him go at it with the Sandra character.
Yes. The Sandra character. And I
Um,
guess Rudolph actually had like a little thing for him too, which is kind of interesting towards the end. You kind of see that he
yeah,
ends up with
yeah, her
someone who cares about him.
the secretary secret lover for him was pretty nice to see at the very end as far as a closing segment. Um, for me, I'd say it was the warehouse scene, the one where we see in the trailer where she's snorting the sugar.
Oh, where
Uh,
he's meeting another Happy Time guy, but who had become underground criminal.
yeah, that whole scene was
Yeah.
pretty cool. I thought it kind of added to the whole investigative theme where they had to kind of team up with each other and do like the buddy cop style, taking on the bad guys, also investigating.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that was one of the funnier scenes. Again, I would have liked to see her overdose for the first time in the movie rather than in the trailer because that scene was kind of funny. Um, where she like passes out and she wakes up and she's like, "Fuck me, right?" And no, he's like, "No,
I
the
just might. I just might.
well, fuck me," and then she's like, "Oh yeah, well maybe."
Well, maybe, maybe.
It was a funny scene, and again, that's one of the very rare scenes that we got that was, I think, pretty funny throughout the movie.
Yeah, a handful, man, if any. Yeah, a handful. That's about all I can say is about a handful of funny scenes.
Yeah, if I was to say who I thought was the murder behind the murders that were happening, I thought it was going to be the next door neighbors, maybe. Um, the neighbors that they had in the show, trying to get their cut for the. If everyone was killed off, they would have got the entire syndication check.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have. Yeah, that was probably the most like something obvious. You would have gone that route.
If they,
But
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, like that would have been my second guess. But I thought it was gonna be those weird twins.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how well this would have worked, but if they wanted to see this kind of play out in a entirely dystopian, unbelievable type of scenario, I would have kind of liked to see the homeless puppet being the guy behind everything.
Oh, just kind of waiting outside, stranger.
Yeah, like think about it. What if his story was that in his perspective everyone had left him behind and he was now homeless, and then through his eyes every career and he was still homeless after the show took off, and he just kind of felt betrayed by everyone, and then his motive was to kind of get back at them. Maybe possibly one of the contracts had to sacrifice one of the original characters, and he was the one that got sacrificed. He got cut.
Yeah.
And then you see him kind of, this guy that's homeless but still has some hope and, has that motivation behind him. I think might have been a interesting storyline to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just maybe something that kind of might have worked a bit better, I think. But the way it gets revealed who was behind it was kind of cool. Again, in this movie, we see more of Melissa McCarthy's character do the investigation. I would have liked to see more of Philip Phillips' character doing the investigation because he kind of gets cut out kind of soon. He gets kind of arrested.
Yeah.
It also didn't make sense why he was running away. That really doesn't make sense to me why he was trying to escape the police because he had nothing to hide from them. The only thing he was trying to do is kind of prove to them that he can still be a good detective and a cop.
Yeah, he had no reason to run from it. Yeah.
It just didn't add anything to the story other than kind of setting his character back
Well,
as development.
and the way I kind of understand it, try to keep an open mind was, during segregation era, civil rights era, like if you were a black guy and you were associated, or black individual, and you were associated with any kind of crime, you were just automatically considered guilty. So he might have said, "Hey, I need to go solve my mystery," rather than just kind of, because that guy, Joel McHale's character, was probably just gonna like put him in prison. Honestly, they were just gonna lock him away because he had been at every murder scene, which the daughter had kind of made sure of because she was trying to get him to take the fall for it.
Yeah, so okay, I see what you're saying as far as Philip Phillips' character kind of wanted to redeem himself.
Yeah, he didn't.
Um,
He knew that if he stayed there, they were just gonna pin it on him.
with that, I mean, I don't think there's really anything else we could really talk about with this movie. Again, with it being so straightforward and the lack of character development and more memorable scenes, um, it honestly felt like it was something he kind of thought of. Maybe he might have thought of it his entire career. He might have wanted to always do something like this, an adult take on the characters he has produced and directed for so long now.
Yeah.
But it also might even feel like something he might have thought of one night when he was talking around with his group of friends or something, and they're like, what's a good idea? Why don't we do a rated R Muppets movie? And it's a rated R Muppets movie, but it feels very rushed. And again, I would have liked to see it more of a TV show. I really think it could have really worked as something like that. Maybe even have a cult following of some sort.
Yeah, I wouldn't have messed up the formula they're known for, and that's their TV series. It would have given it time to develop and get some characters rolling.
And that's one thing that is interesting about these Muppets. Their characters are very iconic, and what's so iconic about it is how personable they are and how relatable they are to each respectable character. Someone might relate to someone else, someone might relate to another puppet. And with these characters here, again, they don't really expand with the main cast. It would have been really cool to see these Muppets kind of get developed more, other than just, them being X stars in a TV show that's going to get syndicated, which, if you don't know what syndication means, it just means that a show that's done for its entirety, as far as it had its series finale, and it's not going to be bought by a TV station to be reran on a TV show, for example, like
Mm.
I Love Lucy or something. So
Yeah,
that's what
exactly.
syndication is. But yeah, I would have liked to see these puppets played out more. They really missed out on that. It was primarily Melissa McCarthy's character, and even Maya Rudolph's character
Yeah.
get more screen time than some of these puppets. So they really missed out on that. I don't know if that was like a contract type thing where the human actors had to get more screen time. But they really missed on that, and it's somewhat of a shame that they didn't expand on that.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. Maybe it was the contract thing. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I could see that
Cause
happening.
why? Yeah,
Again,
because why would you want to? You would kind of get backseated to Muppets. I don't think any reasonable actor would want that.
right? It might be weird. I mean, and even maybe a we'll say quote unquote more creative actor might have thought of, you know what, maybe the we should get, maybe iconic Sesame Street voice actors in this movie, and they could have more of a shine, and we'll kind of play the second to that lead puppet.
Hmm.
Um, what I was gonna say is this movie had that 40 million budget. I doubt the voice actors got more than a third or maybe half of that.
Oh
You
yeah, I
know.
bet. Yeah.
So with these A/B list actors, I can probably tell or assume that they're the ones that got majority of the um, larger contracts. So I think that's a sacrifice they shouldn't have done if that was the case that ended up happening. But yeah, if Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, you're listening, think about a TV show about this. It
Yeah, I
might
mean,
work better.
it could. Yeah, I think this is a potential to do something different. It may be cheaper to kind of make animation. Animation's kind of taking. With Rick and Morty on the rise and some of these Adult Swim shows, animation might be the cheaper option, but people are still enjoying Muppets. There's a lot of work. There's more detail that goes into that, and people want to see that. So I think this business could take off. We just got to do it right.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Animated show that could definitely work, I think. Um, Again, what brought you into this movie was, for one, how vulgar and upfront and rated R it was as far as the trailer showed it was, and then the actual puppets. I think that's what brought people in, and I think they didn't capitalize on that. Um, and they kind of missed an opportunity, but oh well. Um, will we see something of a sequel to this? I don't think so. TV show, hopefully, but yeah, I think that will kind of wrap up our ideas on this movie. Um, Other than that, I mean, I think that'll do it for this episode. Nothing really else to say about this movie. Again, if I were to recommend this, I kind of recommend you wait for the DVD release, or maybe even possibly once it gets on the streaming services, if it does get on one of those. Any last words, Cruz?
Uh, I think everything's been said, man. If y'all want to catch me, drop me some lines on some more content suggestions you guys have. Hit me up on Twitter at Cruise6112.
We are planning on starting to do, or we're planning to start reviewing and just talking about older films, not new releases prior to the 2018 year. So if there's any film you would like for us to kind of talk about and just discuss some ideas, we are kind of planning on looking at a Kubrick series of podcast, as well as maybe with the Creed movie coming out soon. We're going to be looking at the Rocky movies possibly soon here. So if there's any films you kind of would like for us to talk about, just message us on either Twitter or Instagram, and we'll see it possibly talking about those. Again, we will be talking about The Nun next week. So if you're interested in hearing our thoughts and review on that, stick around and check it out next week. Other than that, you can follow us at Entry for One on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter. That's where I'm primarily on at the moment, at Video Josue. Other than that, I think that would do it. Thank you for listening.
Yes.